3 bone-chilling true night shift horror tales that haunt you forever. The clock struck midnight, and the air grew heavy with shadows that twisted and danced in every corner. It was on this haunting hour that the stories of the night shifted into an eerie existence, where the mundane spiraled into terror. Not just any terror, but bone-chilling, paralyzing horror that would grip your chest and pull you into a world where reality and nightmares collided. Each heartbeat echoed like a clock ticking down to inevitable doom, and you could almost feel the shivers creeping down your spine. Let me take you into the depths of the night shift's twisted realm. Joe, a seasoned security guard at the old jail, often joked that the spirits of former inmates never truly left. They roamed, whispering secrets in the dark. On a stormy night, with lightning slicing through the sky like a jagged knife, those whispers turned to anguished screams. He felt a chill ripple through him, goosebumps rising like tiny soldiers on his arms. The monitors flickered, revealing faces distorted in agony, mouths gaping as they faded back into shadow. It wasn't just the flickering lights. It was something more alive, something malicious lurking behind those screens. Meanwhile, Jenna was alone at the late-night diner, the lone flicker of neon inviting the lost souls who wandered in the night. But on this particular shift, a figure sat in the far corner, face hidden beneath a worn hat. She could feel his eyes boring into her, making her stomach twist. As she poured coffee, her hands trembled. Was he irregular? Or something more sinister? With every sip he took, the diner's lively atmosphere faded, leaving only the sound of the clock ticking and her heart racing. What kind of danger lingered in his silence? The third tale involved Tom, a paramedic on call, thrust into the chaos of midnight emergencies. He had seen it all, or so he thought. One night, racing through the pitch-black streets, he answered a call about a woman in distress. Arriving at the crumbling farmhouse, he was met not just with screams, but a deafening silence that turned his blood cold. The air felt thick, suffocating. Then her face appeared at the window, twisted and pale, not in pain, but in pure terror. The last thing he saw before losing himself to darkness was her hand raised, thrashing, as if warning him to run. But what had she seen? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Joe's screen flashed with those tormented faces, Jenna's mysterious customer vanished into thin air, leaving behind only an empty cup, and Tom found himself alone in that suffocating silence where horror lingered. A single question pierced the tension. What do you do when the nightmares of the night come for you? The storm raged outside, its howling winds clawing at the windows. Joe gripped his flashlight tighter, heart thumping like a warped bass drum. He could still hear the echoes of what he had seen on the monitors, the faces, contorted in agony, pleading silently for help. Sweat clung to his brow as he peered into the dim corridor of the jail, shadows shifting unnaturally. Then it happened. A faint whisper curled through the air, echoing the name of a long-dead inmate, Johnny. Joe's blood ran cold. Johnny had been one of the most violent prisoners. Tales of his cruel world echoed through every cell, resonating with the restless dead. Joe took a cautious step forward, and the flashlight flickered once more, illuminating the words scrawled on the wall. "Help me." The letters appeared almost alive, as if they pulsed with some dark energy. Meanwhile, the atmosphere at the diner turned thick with tension. Jenna served the last customers of the night, her nerves frayed after the strange disappearance of the man in the corner. Every swing of her rag across the counter felt like a gesture toward the shadows lurking nearby. Just as she exhaled a sigh of relief, the diner's bell chimed. The door creaked open again. "It's you," she gasped. But no, it was a different figure, drenched from the rain. He stepped inside, his eyes darting nervously, hands trembling as he pulled off a soaked jacket. "Please, you've got to help me," he gasped. What happened? Her heart hammered. The diner was empty now, and it felt like the walls were closing in. Something felt wrong. "There's someone out there," he stammered, locking eyes with her, transcending desperate paranoia. I saw a woman. She looked like she was chasing me. The clock ticked louder, more relentless. Out of the silence emerged a scream, shrill and piercing. Jenna jumped, heart racing. It resonated from outside, where rain poured like sheets against the pavement. Tom found himself jolted awake in the flickering darkness of his ambulance, eyes darting around. Heavy silence wrapped him, thicker than he had ever experienced. The woman at the farmhouse had vanished, but her warning thrummed through his ears, a taunting melody that begged for answers. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life with static. Then a voice pierced through, frantic and distorted. "Tom, you need to get to the old jail." Something terrible, then it cut off. Panic gripped him. Was it a sign? Words of a twisted fate? The urgency propelled him out of the ambulance, boots splashing in puddles as he raced toward the looming structure. As Tom dashed into the darkened interior, shadows seemed to ripple along the walls. A deep growl echoed from the depths, a sound unmistakable. Was that a warning? Or an invitation? All three of them moved, tethered by the threads of fear and flickers of hope. Each of them felt at the impending doom lurking just around the corner, a spectral force drawing closer. What bond tied them to that haunting hour? What sinister truth awaited? The clock continued its unyielding march, and just before the hour struck again, a figure appeared behind them, its face obscured in darkness. "Help me," it whispered, folding into the chilling night. What happens when their fates finally intertwine? What horrors await them as the night spills to a close? The corridor of the old jail felt alive, the walls trembling with an energy that surged through Joe's fingertips as he placed his hand against them. He squeezed his eyes shut for a second, fighting against the mounting terror that threatened to grip him completely. The whisper had roused something deep and monstrous within these walls. The echo of "help me" rattled in his mind. Was he losing himself to the voices of the past? Suddenly, the flashlight dimmed unexpectedly. Panic seized him. The darkness rushed in like a predator, hungry for warmth. He took a hesitant step back, nearly colliding with the doorframe. The sound of heavy footsteps clumped behind him, each echo punctuated by the roar of the storm. "Who's there?" Joe's voice cracked, tremors coursing through him. In the flashes of lightning piercing through the rattling windows, he caught sight of a figure in the distance, shrouded in shadow. A moment later, it vanished. His heart was a war drum, thumping louder as every instinct screamed for him to flee. As Jenna wiped down the last remnants of the diner's counter, thoughts of the drenched man replayed in her mind. She felt the atmosphere shift. Fear crept into her veins. Every little sound held a weight, a promise of something sinister hanging in the air. She peered through the rain-speckled window, but visibility was non-existent. Suddenly, the bell chimed again, making her jump. Who could it be now? "Is someone out there?" She whispered, half hoping for a familiar face. But all she could see was a suffocating darkness. Then, the screams erupted again, piercing through the walls of the diner, shattering any comfort she clung to. It was distorted agony, a cry that echoed off the very walls. She reached for her phone, wrist trembling, heart pounding. Was it the same as before? The terror gripped her. Tom sprinted through the rain, each drop feeling like cold knives against his skin. The distant scream seeped into his consciousness, surging him forward with urgency. What is waiting for me in there? He thought of the radio, of the vague voice warning him to run. Yet it was a siren call he couldn't ignore. As the entrance loomed closer, something in the shadows flickered, a silhouette that darted back and forth, like a moth caught between fear and fascination. Tom's breath quickened. Should he enter? His instincts screamed at him to halt, to turn back. But he took another step, the true terror looming just beyond his thoughts. Inside, he was met by a palpable darkness, the air thick and oppressive. "Hello?" He called out, his voice wavering. The growling sounded closer, a manifestation of dread that curled around him. What awaited him beyond the flickering light? In the diner, Jenna pressed her face closer to the window, desperate for signs of life. The rain grew heavier, and in the downpour, she thought she caught a glimpse of the woman the drenched man had mentioned. Just a figure in the shadows, just out of reach. That's when the lights flickered above her, casting eerie shadows across the wall. The clock continued its soft ticking, an ominous reminder of time slipping away as the boundaries of their lives began to unravel. Was it mere coincidence that they were all drawn to this night, this moment? What unseen force weaved their fates together, drifting like smoke in the storm? The moment hung in the air, thick with suspense. A rush of energy crackled ominously, and as Tom turned a corner in the jail, he stumbled upon a room, door ajar, the faint glow of a light spilling out, waiting silently for him. What lay beyond that door? What truth was waiting to be uncovered as the storm raged? Tom hesitated, the door's glow casting narrow beams like fingers beckoning him. Each step felt monumental, a heartbeat echoing in the hollow air. With every inch closer, the growling morphed into a growl, deep and resonant. Almost alive, a creature of the shadows, he pushed the door. It creaked louder than his pounding heart should be allowed. The light revealed a cramped cell that appeared long forgotten. The walls were covered in grime, and the sense of despair was thick enough to choke him. In the center stood a flickering bulb hanging low, swaying gently as if someone had just left the room. "Is anyone here?" he uttered, his voice barely cutting through the tension. Sweat trickled down his spine, cold and unwelcome. But the only answer was the deepening silence and that haunting growl. Why was he here? He felt a magnetic pull deeper into the shadows. He stepped over debris, a broken chair, shards of glass, and then he saw that a figure huddled in the corner, facing the wall. Long hair draped like vines over a frail frame. Tom squinted, waves of anxiety crashing over him. "Are you okay?" he dared to ask, his voice shaking. The figure turned slowly, revealing sunken eyes glistening with tears that reflected the bulb's weak light. It was a woman. "Help me," she rasped, her voice barely above the whisper of the storm outside. As if that single plea opened a floodgate, Tom felt a jolt of panic burst through him. Every instinct told him to run, but he was rooted to the spot. Whatever haunted these walls was palpable, a darkness that seeped into his very marrow. In the diner, Jenna's phone lit up suddenly, breaking the spell of her shock. The screen was flooded with frantic text from Tom, messages that read like riddles in a language only fear understood. "Have to go, come to the jail, need you." Chills danced across her skin. Leave the diner? Out into the storm? Despite everything that gripped her, a desperate tug pulled at her heart. Tom was in trouble. She grabbed the keys, the weight of them heavy in her palm. Outside, the rain was a chaotic torrent, but Jenna pushed her way through it, each step a struggle against the elements. She couldn't shake the feeling of something lurking just out of sight, watching her every move. As she rounded the corner toward the old jail, lightning struck, illuminating the jagged facade for a split second. But darkness reclaimed its territory just as quickly, thick and ominous. Meanwhile, the woman in the jail cell seemed to dissolve into the shadows, her eyes fixated on Tom. "Don't leave me. He'll come back for me again," she whispered, a pleading urgency that twisted in Tom's chest. Who? He felt the air grow heavier. Outside, Jenna approached the door of the jail, heart racing. As she pushed against it, it swung wide, the hinges protesting with a groan of agony. The sight before her made the breath freeze in her throat. Tom, bathed in pale light, looked ghostly, juxtaposed against the shadows that seemed alive around him. And behind him something shifted. "Tom," Jenna called, stepping inside. A chill enveloped her as the door slammed shut behind her, locking with a resounding click that echoed through her bones. What had she walked into? What lingered just beyond the light? From somewhere deep in the dark, a low growl resonated once more, and they both knew something was coming for them. Something sinister that fed on fear and despair. The storm outside raged on, but inside, the true battle had only just begun. What was the monster lurking in the darkness? And would they find the courage to confront it? Would they even have a chance to escape? Tom's pulse quickened, the pounding in his ears drowning out the simmering growl that echoed from the dark corners of the cell. He turned to Jenna, relief and terror battling in his chest. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered, fear painting his words. Jenna's gaze darted to the woman in the corner, paralyzed as she intertwined her fingers nervously. "What happened here?" she asked, each syllable heavy with unspoken dread. "Help me," the woman moaned again, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "He is coming. He always comes back." "Who?" Tom pressed. The flickering bulb didn't provide much comfort. As if conjured by their fear, The growl intensified, a grotesque harmony joining the tremors of the atmosphere. Shadows writhed against the walls, and the air thickened with every breath they took. Jenna took a half-step forward, her heart pounding against her ribs. "Tom, we need to get her out of here. We can't just leave her." "No, you have to listen," the woman cried, her voice shifting from despair to panic. "You can't trust him. He is stronger than you think." Tom glanced at Jenna, weighing his options. Every cell in his body screamed to flee, yet he felt tethered to the woman's distress. "Who is he?" Tom urged, trying to get any inkling of the danger they faced. In response, the woman's head drooped, as if the weight of her torment was too great. "He is the darkness, he is the one that makes us forget." Her voice cracked, eyes rolling back as if in a trance. "You'll forget he'll take you." Jenna felt a prickle at the back of her neck. "Forget what?" But the woman didn't respond. Instead, her gaze turned glassy, lost in a memory that didn't belong to this moment. Suddenly, she surged forward, grasping Tom's shirt. "If you stay, you'll become one of us. You want to leave, you can't leave." The growl became a roar, shaking the very foundation of the cell. For a split second, they all stood frozen, suspended in terror as the shadow coalesced, materializing behind the woman, a thick, writhing mass that absorbed all light around it. It loomed larger, a grotesque silhouette of malice and despair. "Run!" Tom shouted, adrenaline flooding through him. He yanked Jenna back as the creature advanced, drawing dangerously close, its breath a foul wind that stung their skin. He pulled Jenna toward the door, fumbling with the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The growl morphed into a hiss, as if the very walls were alive, consuming their hope. "It won't let us out." Panic clawed at Jenna's throat. She turned back to the woman, desperate eyes searching for help amidst the chaos. "We can't just leave her." Without thinking, Tom grabbed a rusted pipe from the ground, feeling the solid weight of it in his hands. "We have to break it down." As they pounded against the door, each strike reverberated off the walls, and the creature's laughter echoed around them, a cold, abominable sound that chilled their blood. The woman was still, lost in the void, completely unaware of their struggle. Just then, time seemed to slow. For one frantic second, with the world spinning out of control, they saw the truth. In the depths of the shadows, eyes glowering with hunger, a twisted expression of both fury and longing. It was then that Jenna stumbled back, her scream caught in her throat as the it lunged for them. All the shadows merged into one, reaching, clawing like hands from hell itself. With one last ounce of strength, Tom swung the pipe again and missed. The creature roared, a sound that echoed within their souls, and the lights flickered, threatening to go out entirely. "Not again." The woman cried out, but it was too late. As the darkness surged forward, they would have to make their decision: fight for each other or succumb to the shadows. But in the chaos, another door creaked somewhere in the distant shadows. What secrets lay behind it? And who, or what, would emerge into their nightmare? The door creaked again, louder this time, pulling Tom's attention. "Jenna, look!" he shouted, his heart racing as a pale light flickered from within the shadows. The woman's grip on Tom loosened, her expression frozen in fear. She seemed to sense something, the same premonition that gripped Tom and Jenna. "Get ready," Jenna whispered, voice trembling. They didn't have time to waste. Whatever touched the woman's world lay just behind that door, waiting patiently for an unwitting soul to wander too close. Tom's breath hitching in his throat, he turned his focus back to the door. "Stay close." It was a command veiled in desperation. He raised the pipe again, a last-ditch effort against the tide of darkness crashing around them. Just then, a faint whisper drifted from beyond the door. It was soft, almost sweet, laced with a sinister undertone, urging him closer. "Please come in, I can help. Do we trust it?" Jenna's voice trembled, uncertainty swirling in her gut. "It might be the only chance we have," Tom replied, voice low but steely. The growl from the shadows intensified, pressing them harder against their surroundings, a cacophony of dread pushing them toward the dark vision in front of them. Tom stepped toward the door, inching the weight of the pipe against his shoulder as he gripped the handle. It was cold, but somehow inviting. He hesitated, a swell of anxiety roiling in his chest. Before he could think it through, he twisted the knob, and the door swung open with a reluctant creak. Light spilled into the cell, illuminating the twisted form of the creature, and Tom found himself staring down its grotesque visage, its eyes swirling pools of darkness that seemed to swallow hope whole. "Step inside, and all will be forgotten." The voice that echoed from the doorway sent shivers down Tom's spine. "You can escape the shadows. But escape? At what cost?" The darkness behind him trembled in agreement, as if mocking his hesitation. "Tom," Jenna shouted, frantically pulling at him. "We can't trust it. Please, we have to get out of here." In that split second, the situation crystallized. The woman's warning echoed like a siren's wail. "You'll forget, he'll take you." Tom shook his head, snapping back to reality. He couldn't let the shadows consume them. He couldn't trade Jenna's warmth for fleeting safety from the unknown. "Back away," he yelled, lifting the pipe, arms quaking with adrenaline. "We're not going anywhere." The creature growled, a deep, resonating sound that vibrated through the air, triggering primal fears buried deep in Tom's bones. As if in response, the light from the door flickered violently, illuminating an array of skeletal hands clawing from the floor, desperately grasping at the terrain around them. "Help us!" the woman cried, her voice a raw whisper blending with the terrible growl. "You must help us before it's too late. You can't let him in." Suddenly, the room felt smaller, the air thicker with malevolence. The shadows surged, pooling around Tom, rising higher, threatening to drown out everything in their wake. Jenna's grip tightened on his arm, her panic spilling over. "Tom, we need to move. Now." And just as they turned, clinging together, Tom met the woman's eyes one last time. A fleeting clarity crossed her terrified expression, a glimmer of hope wrapped in despair. Remember, in a flash of courage, he pulled Jenna into a sprint, their breath coming in sharp gasps, as every muscle screamed to push them forward. The overwhelming shadow began to throb like a wounded animal, echoing their retreat. But the door behind them slammed shut with a bone-rattling crash, cutting off the sliver of hope they glimpsed. "What now?" Jenna cried, heart racing as they hit the wall, backs against solid uncertainty growing cold around them. "What if we never find a way out of here?" Tom whispered, fear clawing at his insides, feeling the shadows circle their minds. As if in reply, the flickering overhead light cast an unsettling glow on a new figure lurking in the depths, a shape that shifted and blurred, calling out to them, beckoning with a dark allure. What secrets awaited within that whispering darkness? And how long before they too were lost to the shadows? Adrenaline surged through Tom as he backed away from the wall, pulling Jenna with him. The shadows swirled around their feet, whispering secrets too hushed to discern, fueling a panic that lodged deep in his throat. Everywhere he turned, malevolence was lurking, beckoning him to yield. Droplets of sweat trailed down his back, misting his vision as he tried to make sense of the dim light before them. "What is that?" Jenna stammered, her eyes wide, sweeping the room. Desperation laced her voice, thickening the air with tension. The figure lurking within the shadows morphed, limbs stretching and twisting at unnatural angles. Silence fell heavy, wrapping around them like a shroud. It loomed closer, flickering in and out of focus, revealing glimpses of a face that made Tom's stomach churn. Was it human? Eyes like burning coals glinted wickedly, and he felt the weight of its cold gaze penetrating. "Do you see it?" he whispered, voice trembling. "Yeah," she gasped, her breath hitching in fear. "What do we do?" "Run," Tom shouted as he turned, instinct screaming that to stay was to invite doom. They barreled down the narrow hallway, the torch of light from the flickering bulb casting ghostly shadows that danced around them. Their footsteps echoed against the concrete walls like a throbbing heartbeat, the rhythm both frantic and unrelenting. But the darkness wasn't done with them. The growl from the creature reverberated behind them, a promise of terror that sent jolts of fear coursing through. Every instinct told him to keep running, yet every inch of the darkness whispered temptation. "Come back. It can help." "Tom, I can't." Jenna's voice sliced through his thoughts. "I can't run anymore." He glanced back and saw her stumbling, her legs wavering beneath the weight of dread. He skidded to a stop and turned, desperation clawing at him. "Come on. We can't stop now. We have to the light," she cried, gesturing wildly. "It's breaking." At the end of the corridor, The overhead light flickered violently, casting shadows that writhed like living things. Just as Tom's heart sank at the sight, the world around them shuddered, rattling him to his bones. The walls seemed to pulse, as if alive, with the shadows growing thicker and more twisted. Jenna clutched her head, panic etched on her face. I can't think. It's too loud. Tom stepped forward, reaching for her, but it felt like an eternity stretched between them. The shadows surged, coiling tight around Jenna's legs, dragging her downward. No, he yelled, lunging at her. He managed to seize her hand, his grip firm around her wrist as he pulled with all his weight. With an explosive effort, he tugged her free of the encroaching darkness, but the creature's growl morphed into a raucous laughter, filling the air with a malicious cacophony. It seemed to revel in their fear, growing bolder. Their breaths came in ragged gasps as they pressed forward. They needed to find an exit, something that would lead them away from this labyrinth of despair. Stumbling, they rounded a corner, only to face an intersection shrouded in thick blackness. Left or right, a decision that felt like a gamble with their lives. Tom, please. What do we do? Jenna murmured, her voice barely a whisper, laced with raw vulnerability. His throat tightened, feeling the overwhelming weight of their situation. We go right, he shouted, certainty fueling his determination even as doubt raged inside him. With one last desperate look over their shoulders, they dove into the darkness, hearts pounding in sync, praying they wouldn't be swallowed whole. But as they sped away, another whisper slithered through the air, curling around them like smoke, promising untold truths and terrifying consequences. You'll never leave, you'll belong. What awaited them in the next turn? And could they truly escape the haunting force that prowled just behind their steps? The darkness closed in tightly, as if it were a living entity, squeezing the life out of any remaining hope. Tom felt the cold sweat on his brow turn into ice, seeping through him, leaving behind a trail of goosebumps. The air grew thick, almost unbreathable, as they pressed deeper into the corridor. Keep going, he urged, the grip on Jenna's hand tightening as they pressed on despite the heaviness that weighed against them. Somewhere in the distance, a whisper echoed, and Tom felt it resonate deep within him, a voice he could almost comprehend. You'll never leave. It sent a chill racing down his spine, but he swallowed back the dread and propelled forward. The flickering lights above cast a disorienting glow, and he couldn't shake the sensation of being watched, as if unseen eyes were tracking their every move. The junction narrowed, splitting into multiple paths like a gaping maw. He hesitated, each potential route feeding into the churning pit of despair inside him. Tom, which way? Jenna's voice trembled, her strength fading with every second. Suddenly, the walls around them reverberated with a haunting melody. Distorted echoes of laughter mixed seamlessly with the whispers, creating a symphony of horror. It was too much. He had to move. Let us try left, he blurted out, feeling propelled by instinct more than logic. They bolted down the corridor, the darkness tightening its grip around them, as if protesting their escape. Jenna stumbled again, nearly slipping as her foot caught on something unseen. Fear prickled at Tom's senses. Time was running out, and he pulled her up. Stay with me, just a little longer. We can't. Her voice broke, resonating through the overwhelming cacophony. We must go back. No, you can't think like that. Tom snapped. But even as he said it, something deep within him trembled at her words. Where would back lead them? Another intersection loomed ahead, the dim light barely enough to guide them. Shadows danced maliciously on the walls, their shapes contorting, waiting to pounce. Ahead, a wooden door stood ajar, an unexpected glimmer of hope within the shrouded surroundings. It was strange and inviting, almost out of place amid the torment. That way. It's open. He pointed, adrenaline kicking anew at the sight of an exit. She hesitated, something locking her feet where they stood. Tom, what if it's a trap? What choice do we have? He urged, glancing over his shoulder in time to catch a flash of movement. The creature was following, taunting them with each step. That final shove into action was all he needed. We can't stay here. With a single tug, he pulled her toward the door, and just as they crossed the threshold, the air shifted. A jarring chill washed over them, mixing with the warmth of their desperation. They stumbled inside, and the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening crash. The room was sparsely lit, and at first, He thought it might be a sanctuary. But as his eyes adjusted, he felt his heart plummet. The walls were lined with photographs, faces distorted in terror, eyes wide and pleading, as if trapped in a moment forever. The people looked eerily familiar. He recognized a few of them as missing persons from town. How could this be? Tom's breath hitched, dread curling in his gut. What is this place? He whispered, fear creeping back like the pressing shadows outside. Suddenly, the darkness outside shifted, and a voice rumbled from beyond the door, low and menacing. Welcome home forever. Jenna gasped, and Tom staggered back, realizing that the whispering shadows were not just back there. They had found a way in. What would the shadows demand of them now? And were they truly trapped, as the whispers claimed, or was there still a way to claw their way back into the light? The air inside the room thickened further, pulsing with shared dread. The prints on the walls seemed alive, their frozen expressions calling out beyond the stillness. Tom felt their eyes boring into him, each gaze a silent accusation. Could they really be watching him now? Could they feel the weight of fear emanating from his very soul? Jenna's voice was barely a whisper, trembling, fading. What if we're not alone here? He didn't respond. He was too engrossed in the line of faces that haunted the walls, each one drawing him closer. They were people he had known, people who had vanished without a trace. Each face was a reminder of loss, a thread in the dark tapestry of their town's secrets. But in the back of his mind, the low growl of the voice outside brought him crashing back to reality. We have to find a way out, he urged. He glanced back toward the door. It stood defiantly closed, but the shadows moved with a life of their own. He could almost see their fingers curling, beckoning him closer. No, Jenna suddenly shouted, pulling him away from the wall. Don't look at them. They're drawing you in. He felt a shiver of understanding race up his spine at her words, a kind of instinctual realization. These weren't just photographs, they were traps. His impulse to learn their stories could cost him dearly. We can't stay here, he said, as the whispers reached a fever pitch, rising and falling like a dark ocean wave. With a resolve that felt fragile, he turned to the opposite side of the room and scanned for another exit. There had to be something, any sign of a way out. But as he searched desperately, the shadows in the corners began to shift, forming vague shapes that slithered closer. Tom's heart pounded, echoing in his ears that a sudden rush of wind blasted through the room, rattling the walls and flickering the dim light. This is where you belong, the voice sang from beyond the door, now ringing with twisted glee. Run, he shouted, grabbing Jenna's hand, forcing them both toward the back of the room. They reached a wall that felt unnervingly solid, yet he kept pushing against it, every leap of belief that maybe it would give way. Tom. Jenna's breath was coming in ragged gasps. What if they want us to break it down? What if they don't let us go? The shadows writhed, almost in response to her fears. He could sense them tightening, coiling around the door like a creature ready to strike. But at that moment, the light flickered and morphed, casting a strange glow around a small opening he hadn't seen before, just beneath the stairs leading to a faintly shimmering corner. Over there, the staircase, Tom shouted, turning on a dime. The shadows seemed to hiss, clawing at their heels as they sprinted toward the light. As they reached the staircase, a sickening realization struck him. The light felt deceptively comforting, but he sensed the threat that lingered behind it. What waited beyond the next step? They were running deeper into the dark, enticed by the illusion of hope. Wait, Jenna called, gripping his arm, stopping him just before they ascended. What if it's another trap? With shaking hands and a racing heart, Tom faced her. We either try this, or we're finished. We have to take the risk, he urged, feeling the chill usher in on his back. Without weighing their options any longer, he pulled Jenna toward the staircase. The shadows whispered louder now, a crescendo of voices both soothing and sinister. As they ascended the creaking steps, he couldn't shake the sensation that the house itself was alive and breathing around them, a predatory force ready to engulf them whole. Where does this lead? Jenna asked, a hint of desperation in her voice as they reached the top. It has to be better than the whispers, Tom replied, shaking off the worry that clung to them like a fog. They stepped onto the landing, and as they caught their breath, a door creaked open at the end of the corridor. From it spilled an eerie, golden light, flickering like flame. Tom, what if it wants us to enter? Only one way to find out, he said, the uncertainty, pouring into him. Steeling themselves, they took a tentative step forward, each stride echoing the tension that had built into a fever pitch. The whispers outside grew silent, making way for the unknown. But as they approached the beckoning light, the promise it held felt more dangerous than the darkness behind them. What awaited them on the other side? And would they be ready to face it together? As they stepped through the door, a warm glow enveloped them, contrasting sharply with the chilling darkness they'd escaped. Tom felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over him, but the moment was fleeting. The atmosphere buzzed with tension, and it felt like they were stepping into a trap rather than a sanctuary. The room was bright, but eerily empty. Candles flickered, casting long shadows that danced on the walls. The air smelled sweet, almost intoxicating, drawing them further into the room. "What is this place?" Jenna whispered, scanning the walls that were lined with ancient artifacts and decaying photographs of people long forgotten. Something about the room's very essence felt both alluring and sickening. "Hello?" Tom called, his voice echoing slightly. They both felt compelled to move deeper inside, an uncanny pull urging them toward the far side where another door stood slightly ajar. The glowing light spilling out like an invitation they couldn't ignore. As they approached, the whispers returned, but this time, they felt like a soothing caress. "You're safe here, you're home," the words wrapped around them, warm and inviting, creating confusion in their minds. "I don't like this," Jenna murmured, clutching Tom's arm tightly. Suddenly, the door swung open. A man stood silhouetted in the doorway, his features obscured by light, but his presence exuded comfort. "Welcome," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "You've both been seeking answers. Come in, learn the truth about your past, about why you were drawn to this place." Fear and curiosity wrestled for dominance in Tom's mind. "What do you mean?" he asked, stepping closer. The man smiled, beckoning them with a graceful wave of his hand. "The shadows that haunt you aren't merely threats," he explained, stepping aside. "They are reminders of the choices you make, reflections of your fears, your regrets." Tom exchanged a glance with Jenna, uncertainty flickering between them. "You mean they're part of us?" "Precisely," the man answered. "To move forward, you must confront what lies behind. But beware, knowing your past may awaken its power all over again." Tom could see Jenna wavering, but he felt a surge of adrenaline. This could be a way to free them from the horrors that pursued them. "We have to do this," he urged her, his voice steadying. "We can't let this define us." The man stepped fully into the light, revealing a humane face with gentle eyes that twisted into a haunting frown. "Very well then, prepare yourselves." With a wave, the air shifted, and suddenly, images flickered across the walls like theater projections. Faces of the people they'd lost washed over them, friends, family, lives they'd barely salvaged from the wreckage of their pasts. The shadows swirling behind them flickered uncomfortably, writhing in anticipation. "No," Jenna cried out, stepping back. "We can't face that again." "Do not fear them," the man insisted, "for acknowledging these memories is the first step toward loosing their grip on your soul." "Stop," Tom shouted, feeling the memories claw at his mind. "We just want to be free." "In order to be free, you must accept their weight," the man replied, his voice calm as it enveloped them. "Learn to forgive yourself." As he spoke, the shadows surged forward, merging into a swirling mass before them, forming grotesque figures, replicas of the fears and mistakes they had tried to escape from. Each face a memory, each presence a source of guilt. "I can't. Let it go?" Jenna shouted, her voice cracking. With a sudden burst of courage, Tom reached out, the memories attacking him from all sides. In a panting breath, he shouted, "I accept you. I accept my past." The figures shuddered, their shadows losing substance as Tom's acceptance resonated through the room. The growls faded into echoes, surrendering to the warmth of his words. Jenna saw her way forward through Tom's bravery. It didn't have to end in despair. "I accept you too. I forgive you," Jenna cried out, joining Tom, her voice breaking through the darkness. A bright light exploded around them, illuminating everything with the purifying heat of redemption. The shadows collapsed, losing their power, and in those fleeting moments, they saw the faces of those they'd lost fade into the light, smiling in forgiveness. In that instant, clarity washed over Tom and Jenna. They were not bound to their pasts. They carried them forward, shaped by pain but unbroken. The burden of the shadows lifted, leaving behind a new strength forged from acceptance. Together, the man said softly, his voice echoing as the light enveloped him too, "You are free." Tom and Jenna turned to the door, sunlight streaming in like the dawn of a new day. With hearts racing, they stepped through, leaving the shadows behind for good. As they emerged into daylight, the weight of fear finally dissipating, Tom took Jenna's hand. "We did it," he breathed. And in that moment, hope bloomed like a flower breaking through concrete, pulsing with the promise of fresh beginnings. They walked away from the nightmares of the night into the bright embrace of tomorrow, together, ready to face whatever else lay ahead. Now, as we wrap up this chilling tale, remember this: the shadows may linger, but they hold no power over you. If you enjoyed this story and want more thrilling content, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait another second. Smash the like button for the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories. What did you think of the ending? Did our heroes find their way? And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who are curious about the dark corners of stories that haunt us forever. This is the moment to show your support for the channel and be part of our ever-growing community. Don't miss out, your voice matters.